Good evening and welcome to Slam the Gavel, the show that tells it all regarding family court, other court issues, as well as CPS. I am your host, Marianne Petrie. Bradley's mother, Narky Skolin, passed away 3 months ago. He is autistic and needs structured routine and therapies he receives for his autism 6 days a week. However, Italy just entrusted Bradley to the Italian Social Services. If he is ruled to go back, he will face the next 3 to 4 years in the Italian foster care system where he can't speak or understand the language. He will be taken away from the only family he has ever known. Please call Governor Hochul at 518-474-8390. That's Governor Hochul at 518-474-8390. And please voice your concerns to keep Bradley here in these United States. Hashtag keep Bradley safe. I have a return guest on. I have Patriot Mom and Dad. They are back on to give an update, a very recent update. The last time I had them on was season 3, episode 140, which was October 25th of 2022, and just last week, February 14th, 2023, season 4, episode 38. Now, the problem that they're having right now is Patriot Dad is receiving death threats, and we're doing this podcast to make everyone aware of this, that there is retaliation. And I'm talking to Patriot Mom right now. When did this all start?
Good morning, Marianne. I just wanted to tell you thank you for having us again so soon.
It's okay.
So we looked on the McLennan County Mugshots Facebook page, and one of our neighbors slandered and defamed us. I won't give his name just yet, but he slandered and defamed us and said that we were going around town telling everybody sob stories. Well, I really don't think it's a sob story when we have evidence that our child showed us that they were taught oral sex. And in response to the McLennan County Mugshots Facebook page, somebody else responded with "get a rope," because of this article that Fox 44 wrote. That's KWKT. Fox 44 KWKT wrote this slanderous article with not all the information, didn't want to talk to us. And they had said that our child was 11 years old at the time of the offense. Well, our child is 11 now, and we haven't seen her since, my husband hasn't seen her since she was 7, and I haven't seen her since she was 8. And then the first death threat he received was because the Waco Herald Tribune wrote an article about him, and somebody had said he deserves to be thrown in a wood chipper feet first. So we know for a fact that the county is retaliating against us because we filed a federal mass tort against the county, and the county defaulted. They did not respond to the federal mass tort lawsuit, and they are retaliating against us for filing that lawsuit.
And if I may add, this one person who has stated, that we're going around spreading a sob story. This is a guy that about 3 minutes down the street from us, there's an RC track. I ran RCs with this guy, and he overheard our story. And it's not that we're trying to get people to believe us. We're trying to get the word out about the corruption in the CPS system. I don't care if anyone in town believes me. I'm not here to impress anybody. All I'm here to do is, first off, show my innocence to the court, get our children back, and be left in peace. That's all we moved out here for. And even if my whole neighborhood turns on me, I don't care. I'm a homebody anyway. Go to work, come home, go to the gym. I don't do much. But it sucks when you got people in the community saying things
that they don't have all the information on.
Yeah, kind of a knee-jerk reaction
Right.
with very, very minimal information. And a lot of people don't understand that the media has refused to do the actual investigative journalism that they're supposed to do. I mean, people want facts.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want the blue pill and stay in the rabbit hole.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, I had to quote the Matrix on that one, but it's
Mm-hmm.
fact.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we're all given a blue pill to a certain extent, but there's got to be some point where you got to take that red pill. You got to look for those facts,
Mm-hmm.
and you got to know the truth.
Right. And there's two sides to a coin, and you just can't believe, like you said, a knee-jerk reaction.
Yes.
You've got to investigate, or even, even come to your door and say, hey, what's going on? Is there anything I can do to help? And get you to talk and tell your story and your side, because
Yes.
there's always two sides of the story.
Yes. And what a lot of the people here in Texas don't understand, even the ones with the knee-jerk reaction, I understand. These articles make me look like a monster.
Mm-hmm.
But my door is open, and I'll tell anybody, you want to come get my side of the story? You want to view some of the evidence we have? I guarantee you will be leaving my house knowing that I'm innocent.
Mm-hmm.
I have everything that I need to prove that innocence. Problem is, the courts, the county, you name it, anybody who has the ability to absolve me of these charges or allegations has not wanted to see a shred of it. I mean, our video of our younger daughter, we showed to the civil court, and the judge, yeah, she raised an eyebrow at it. That's fine and dandy. But for her to ignore it, what good does that do for our kids? I mean, me put aside, it's the kids who are suffering here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I got charges. I spent a couple days in jail between both arrests. But I don't care about that.
Mm-hmm.
I care about the children having the justice that they deserve and coming home and being saved from a mother-in-law who is going out of her way with a 15-year vendetta.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess Patriot Mom has something else to say.
Okay.
I often ask myself this question, Marianne, and it's what disqualifies our children and our family from justice? Why are, I mean, honestly, I feel like my family is among the forgotten.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like, there's a reason they don't want to see the evidence that we have. I mean, it was submitted to the court and the judge ignored it. And, she had two opportunities to order an investigation on the foster home, and she didn't order an investigation on the foster home. So where's the justice for our children in that?
She had two chances for that too.
I just said that.
I'm so sorry. Hey, what was the judge's name again?
Nikki Mankowski. She is an associate judge for the 74th District Court out of McLennan County.
Hey, how do I spell her last name?
MUND like Delta, K like Kilo, OW, MUNDOW, SK, S is in Sierra, K is in Kilo, Y is in Yankee.
Okay. Mankowski. Okay.
Yes. Nikki Mankowski is the lady who we are actually blaming for the trafficking of our children.
Well, especially our son, because our son was ruled out twice. And if your child is ruled out, it's to our understanding that the judge is required to return that child, because if the child is ruled out from all forms of abuse, then what point does the state have to keep them? That's when it becomes being held against his will.
Mm-hmm.
That's when it becomes entrapment of a child, you know?
Would
And
that,
her
go
first
ahead.
name is Nikki.
Okay.
She's also on, she's been reported to the website Abusive Judges.
Hmm.
I think it's called .com,
Yes.
but she's been reported on that website as well.
Oh, yes. It's childabusevejudges.com.
Yes.
That's it.
Yeah. This is just a tragedy. I was hoping, senators would get involved and look at your case.
Oh, well, I have something to bring up about that. We called our district senator, Brian Birdwell's office, and have tried to report this, and his office is not doing anything. They're saying that they can't do anything because it's a legal matter, you know.
But yeah, Senator Bob Hall,
Yes.
in northern Texas, helped the Pardo family.
Yeah, Senator Bob Hall out of Rockwall, Texas, he helped the Pardo family. And Senator Bob Hall, he's awesome. He actually goes out of his way to bring knowledge and things like that to the people. But we've got some here that just don't do that.
Well, and I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. Maybe they don't know how they can help. I mean, I can't rule that out either. But on top of that, it takes some research, it takes some learning to figure out how to help one of your constituents in your jurisdiction.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can't just say, oh, I represent you, but I'm not going to help you in any way I possibly can. But on the other hand, the judicial system here in Texas, I understand, is very corrupt. It's a monopoly, pretty much.
Yeah, they
the
rules.
They change the rules as they go to
Mhm.
fit their agenda to get that win. And I hate to say it, I've seen it far too many times in far too many cases, just through our civil case. I mean, if in 1 month you get your rights terminated and you're looking at this judge throughout the entire month to see if any other families get their children back and they don't, there's a problem. There should have at least been one child returned to their family,
Mhm.
but there were none. And we're talking August of 2020 when our rights were terminated. No child was returned. And it makes you wonder, okay, what's going on here? Why did not a single child get returned to their family? It's concerning, especially when 45,000 as of what was it, August of last year, 45,000 children in Texas alone are in the foster system. 460 plus are without placement, and 260 have died in the foster system here. Those numbers are astronomical in my view.
Mhm.
One death is far too much.
It's
But
out of control. So out of control.
yeah, it's way out of control.
Like, how are you protecting children if you're losing the names of the children, if you're putting them in placements where people are abusive?
Mhm.
If you don't properly vet the foster people, like how are you protecting children? Especially if you're not performing complete investigations, you're not doing your job as your handbook states that you should be, but you're also not following the Constitution. I mean, if they come in without a warrant and they take your children, that is kidnapping.
Mhm.
Period. That is exactly what that is. If they do not have a warrant, that is kidnapping. And yet these people, they get away with it all the time. Nobody, and here in Texas, nobody does anything about the judges here.
No.
You can contact the State Commission on Judicial Conduct and file a report, and they will write back to you and say, we didn't find anything, even if you send them evidence. You can file a complaint on your attorney with the state bar. The state bar won't do anything.
Well, yeah, and there's a person out here named Jeff Morgan who is currently doing a series just on the corruption of the civil courts. And he even said, you know, you can go to the State Commission on Judicial Conduct, make a report, and they won't do nothing. They'll claim that, oh, they're inundated with reports.
Well, they wouldn't. I mean, of course they're going to be inundated. Look how
Well, not
Yeah.
just that.
corrupt it is.
Two, they're not paid at all. It's a voluntary position.
Did we find that out for sure?
I know it for sure. But one of my biggest concern is the lack of empathy.
And oversight.
We went to a hearing where they listened to the public, and they hold these hearings by
every 2 years.
Yeah, every 2 years. And I was disgusted. I was sitting there. I was going to stay silent throughout that whole thing. Patriot Mom had her say, and while other parents were talking, I saw this one judge who oversees 3 different counties, and he was doodling.
Mhm.
So I had to get up there, and I called him out. And I told him, look, this is not the America I was raised in. The America I was raised in, we had honor, respect, and decorum. And I said, Your Honor, I caught you doodling. Is this what we need to expect? To have superpowers who pretty much rule over their constituents like cattle? I refuse to be a cattle. I refuse to be a sheep.
Mhm. Yeah,
But
and they're not following their judicial canons. They're not following the Constitution.
yeah, judicial canon number 5 is one of the biggest things that was being brought up during that meeting. And I don't remember what it is, but I believe it's just about decorum. They even said we need these courts to be open and have cameras in the courts, yet there are none. Now it's gotten to a point where it's almost a military state. You get court watchers in there, the judges are taking down the court watchers' names.
Mhm.
Or when they were having the proceedings over Zoom, they wouldn't let the court watchers in. And, you know, what's worse is the court watchers that we had 36 court watchers, and they had to watch the trial via YouTube. And but what's bad is those court watchers, none of them came forward. 36 court watchers viewed our trial and none of them came forward. You know, I've never been a court watcher, so I don't know how one would come forward. Like, would they write their senator? Would they write the State Commission on Judicial Conduct? You know, stuff like that. But I mean, still, none of them came forward to report what they witnessed or anything.
I mean, maybe they don't know that they have to report judges' behaviors and how they behaved through the proceeding. Like, did they yell at the pro se litigant? Did they roll their eyes at the pro se litigant? Were they looking on their iPhone when the, even opposing was talking, or the pro se litigant? People need to report this to their judicial conduct areas in their states. And I've done that. I've court watched in Florida, and I have reported. And, you may not think it's going anywhere, but if all 36 of those court watchers would have reported, that would have been helpful.
It would have been helpful and something would have been done, because with that many court watchers, you know, somebody, if not all of them, is going to hold them accountable and make sure that they do something about it.
Mhm.
You know, but none of them came forward, and it certainly didn't help us any. You know, another thing is we found out that our former judge, the one who terminated our rights, shares a law office with our former attorney out of Gatesville, Texas. She shares a law office with our former attorney. And if I am correct, I think it's 18 USC 455, I believe, which is the disqualification of a judge. You would think that if the attorney was sharing a law office with the judge, that the judge would be required to recuse themselves, or if the attorney was ethical, then they would have withdrawn from the case. You would think that.
Mhm.
But
But that's where the money laundering comes in.
I just want to know what disqualifies our family from justice. I just want to know, why Texas is so incredibly corrupt. I mean, I'll send you the link to the website, Marianne, but there's a blog called I'mMad2Harry.com, and I'mMad2Harry.com exposes all of the corruption in McLennan County, all of it.
Mhm.
Well,
And
and if I may interject for a minute,
of course.
Because that just reminded me of something. CPS's mission is honorable. I will give it that. It's the execution that needs to be fixed.
Mhm.
Because you have a whole, if they actually executed their mission as per the parameters of the Family First Act and their policy, or even the Constitution for that matter, there will be far less removals, far less termination of parental rights. It would be a happier place, basically.
Mhm.
But you have an agency that is basically running amok.
Mhm.
They feel they're untouchable. They're backed by lobbyists and even politicians. They're not being checked on by patriots.
Mhm.
And that's the one thing I was speaking with Patriot Mom about last week. I said, what's the difference between a patriot and a politician? And when she said, what? I said, your willingness to lie
Mhm.
or willingness to stand up for what's right.
Mhm.
And I said, Greg Abbott, he chose to be a politician. That situation that happened at the school down in southern Texas, Uvalde,
Mhm.
he went, had a press meeting, nothing after that. Nothing. That's a politician. Yeah. That we have seen. We haven't heard any other news about that. A patriot would have went down there, had the news briefing, and put the foot down and said, you will do something about this.
Mhm.
I want to check up on you, and I'm going to report to the people to show that, yes, we are standing up for these children who have lost their lives, and they did not lose their lives in vain. That would be a patriot.
And then the parents, look what the parents are going through.
Yeah, and even the parents are sitting here like, what's going on?
Yeah, but look what they're going through.
Yeah, I mean, they lost children. They'll never, that's where memories stopped, right there, because of a psychopath.
Mhm.
And I mean, you can really look at it. How could a guy who works at Wendy's at minimum wage afford a $6,000 and $7,000 rifle? And I don't know what kind of pistol he had, but be able to walk in and in front of law enforcement mow down children.
Ugh.
How, I mean, I saw the surveillance video. Those cops had riot shields.
There were two.
There were two with riot shields. They could have waltzed in there, took them out, and been done. But they sat there waiting, basically picking their noses,
Mhm.
doing nothing while they're listening to children being killed. It took a off-duty Border Patrol officer to go in to save his child to take out that person, when law enforcement was sitting there for like 45 minutes picking their noses.
I'm surprised there aren't lawsuits over that.
There should be. Texas should have been in an uprise about that, but it didn't happen. But such is my situation. You have an innocent family. You already take their kids. Now you got to make an example of them. And what better person to make an example of than a person whose mother-in-law hates him? You already gave the children to her, which that in of itself already muddies the waters, discredits the whole deal, because she's an accuser. And you hand the kids to her, what do you think is going to happen? The children are going to start parroting what she says. And
right,
that's Stockholm's.
Right. And she's alienating you from your children.
Not just us. She alienated everybody that Patriot Mom and I know. But people she knows and approves, they get to talk to our kids. So no matter what, the kids are being abused and manipulated.
Yeah, she the caregiver even isolated my best friend, who's been my best friend for 30 years, from our children. My best friend doesn't even understand why she was isolated from our children. And I have reported this and reported this and reported this. I've even reported to Waco PD as well as McLennan County Sheriff's Department that my mother is manipulating law enforcement. And that's a crime. You cannot manipulate law enforcement for your own personal gain. Oh, yeah. And of course, nothing is being done. And like the way she manipulates law enforcement is, first she called my best friend and said, hey, I have some stuff that I would like to send to my daughter, but I don't know her address. And my best friend said, well, you can send it to me and I'll make sure she gets it. And my mom said, okay, thanks. And then she calls on November 5th of 2021, she calls McLennan County Sheriff's Office, and the police officer that I talked to the other day read me the report, and it said, she had said, my daughter has answered everybody's phone calls on her birthday except for mine, and she lives with an abusive husband, so I don't know if she's alive or dead. And I explained to this officer, I said, look, all of that is a lie. I said, my husband is not violent. He is not abusive. I said, I even offered evidence to the court to prove that he's not abusive. He said, what evidence did you offer? And I said, I asked the court to order me to come to the sheriff's office once a week and have pictures of my body taken to prove he's not abusive. And he said, and what did the judge say? I said, she denied it.
Yeah, I want to know why judges are denying evidence exhibits. I want to know why this is happening to parents.
Because it would significantly counteract their agenda. Their agenda is to destroy families and take and essentially traffic children and sell them to the highest bidder. That's their agenda.
It's because children are worth money to them. Title IV money is about $4,000 to $6,000 per child, and it's an extra $2,000 if the child is disabled. And that's why they have these adoptability surveys for the children. Are they going to school? Are they healthy? Are they blonde? Are they brunette? What color eyes do they have? They will do this whole check and put a value on the child.
Yep.
Just like with our Social Security and our birth certificates. Not very many people know this. We're one of the very few handful that know this. But there's a reason why the Social Security number is a number. It's an account number on you. There's a reason why your parents on your birth certificate are named as informants, not parents. Because the government takes out a certain amount of funds on you with the expectation that you'll meet those funds. And the states, when they convict you, the judge alone makes about $50,000 off of you.
Well, not only that, but why do you think you have to pay at least in Texas, you have to pay for the time you spend in jail. When you get out, you have to pay the bill yourself. Why do you think court fees are so astronomical? Why do you think you have to pay for every file that you want to grab out of your case? Or
let's dig deeper. Why do they make you work in jail? You got to earn that money to pay for your jail cell,
for your 5-star stay. Hey, I was going to ask you, I just thought of something. Would it be okay to share my screen so that you and the community can see the video of my child saying they were sexually assaulted in the foster home?
I don't know. I mean, was that in court records?
Yeah, it's already been submitted to the court.
It was evidence ignored.
It was the ignored evidence in the trial.
Okay, is it, and it's a recording or a video?
It's a video.
I just don't want to show the child's face.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
It would show the child's face. And I think that would draw a little too much attention to us. But I'll draw attention to myself. I would say if anyone lives in Waco, come talk to me. I'm willing to show you everything that you need to see.
Mm-hmm.
Including the evidence we have of CASA of McLennan County violating federal wiretapping laws. We have that. The CASA advocate supervisor who testified during the trial, she was asked, did you record it? And she said yes. And then she testified, I got permission from the therapist to record, so I didn't have to inform the mother that I was recording. But what she failed to understand is while Texas is a one-party consent to record state, Nevada is not. Mm-hmm. And at the time that she was monitoring my visitations rather, she was required by, in Nevada, NRS statutes 200.620 all the way through 200.650 discuss record laws. And it says in Nevada that anybody can give permission to record. However, whoever gives permission to record must be a part of the interaction. Not shall, not may, but must be a part of the interaction. Well, she testified that the therapist who in our most recent interview, I clarified that this therapist said she was not a therapist, she was an intern. She testified, the CASA advocate supervisor testified that the therapist gave her permission to record, so she didn't have to. Well, since the therapist gave permission to record, the therapist was required under Nevada law to be a part of that interaction. She was not. Mm-hmm. So,
the therapist lives in Nevada.
And the therapist lives in Nevada.
She should know that.
And, well, not only did CASA violate my rights, but by recording without me knowing or telling me, but she also, since my rights to our children were still intact at the time, she also denied me my parental rights to either consent or deny to any recordings of our children. And the evidence that I have that she violated federal wiretapping laws, I took snapshots during all of the Zoom visitations, and on the upper right-hand corner of these pictures, there's a little record bubble at the upper right-hand corner. So, I mean, these people, they get away with everything.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah, that's the injustice in this whole system. It's just deplorable.
It's designed to harm the people. It is designed for the people to lose. It is designed for the people. You step over that threshold from the hallway to the courtroom, your rights are terminated. You have no rights in the courtroom.
Yes.
No.
And there was something on that Facebook page that I kind of feel it necessary to bring to light. Someone, I believe it was that guy who lives in our neighborhood who slandered me, said this, that children will not lie if they've gone through that. That could be fact. I'm not calling my children liars.
Mhm.
I would never do that. But how can you sort out the lies that were put into the children's mouths and get the facts out? Because we have two different stories from the children. For the first 7, 8 months, they were saying, no, daddy never hurt us. I mean, we're talking as soon as they got back to Las Vegas, my mother-in-law took them to our pediatrician, told the pediatrician, I guess Patriot Mom has something to say.
Yeah, I'm very forgetful, so I'll give the phone right back to him. Please don't lose your thought, okay?
No,
Um, I had visitations that were monitored by CASA of McLennan County every Monday starting April 20th of 2020. And every Thursday was monitored by the kids' therapist with she was an LCSW. Every Monday, the kids would cry for their dad, want to see their dad, want to talk to their dad, wondering where he was. And then every Thursday, and this was 2 visitations per week. Every Thursday, they would have a visitation talking about how much they hated him and how much they wish he wouldn't have done stuff and just all these other things. So on Monday, they miss him. He would never hurt them, this, that, and the other thing. But then on Thursday, he's a horrible monster. And, I hate daddy and all this other stuff. So they were obviously being coerced. And all of this is on recording.
Mhm.
Like these people told me not to record my visitations. Screw them. My rights
Yeah.
were still intact. And I actually asked the Office of Civil Rights and Liberties, the U.S. Office of Civil Rights and Liberties, if I had the right to record my children. And they said, yes, you have every right to record your children. So I recorded my children. And, but
And,
yes,
and
I
they were being coached, obviously.
100%. They were not only being coached by the obvious DFPS, their LCSW, the CASA. Our daughter even told us, which we have on recording, that the judge would make contact with the children out of proceedings. So she would have ex parte with our children, which the judge, that means, at least if I'm correct, that means the judge was tampering with witnesses. But she would have private talks over the phone with the kids, you know?
Yeah. How does a judge have time to do this? That's what I
Well,
want to.
she have the right and the authority to do that.
Right. Right.
That's ex parte.
Yeah, it's kind of weird that our children would say such a thing, but that's where it's hard for me to say that my children are lying, because I don't know what is true or not.
Mhm.
But they're my children. I have to take what they tell us as fact.
Mhm.
And I mean, back to what I was saying, July 19th. Oh yeah, you're right. June 19th of 2019, our children were taken back to Las Vegas on June 11th. The 19th, they had a checkup with our pediatrician that they've been going to for
Since our eldest was born,
Yeah.
the day after she was
yeah
born.
since she was born. So we got about 7 years with this guy.
Mhm.
My mother-in-law turns around and tells him, "Oh yeah, daddy abused them. They were taken by CPS. Now they're in my custody." He asks each and every one of them, "And did daddy hurt you?" All 3 of them. "No, daddy never hurt us." I have the documentation of that. Then they had 2 forensic interviews, both September and October. No outcries were made. And then these sexual abuse allegations come out. Wait a minute. What's going on here?
Mhm.
There's obvious coaching. They've been with an accuser for 3-4 months.
Since the very first day of the
Yeah.
case, our very first trial, June 11th of 2019, that's the day the caregiver got the kids.
Yeah. So since June 11th till September, they're with an accuser. Nothing really happens.
Mhm.
And then all of a sudden, all these sexual abuse
But the
allegations come
important
out.
thing is those sexual abuse allegations came out 30 days prior, 30 days before we were supposed to be reunified with our children.
And yeah, that's the other issue. The sexual abuse allegations came out 30 days before we were supposed to be reunified. And at the time, I was more than willing to work with CPS. We were already doing our family plan.
Mm.
And even though I objected to batterer's intervention, and that's when Patriot Mom turned up and said, hey, look, he doesn't need to go through that. He
Mhm.
doesn't abuse me. And the judge said, well, what do you want me to do? She said, take pictures of me. I'll strip down right here. And you'll see there are no bruises, nothing. And the judge said, that's not necessary. What authority does a judge have to refuse evidence, much less exculpatory evidence? They're a fact finder too.
They're also mandated reporters.
Yeah. But she turned around and ordered me to do batterer's intervention. And there I was treated like a convict. I was amongst convicts who were still on papers.
And you were being bullied by your instructor.
Yeah, I was being bullied by the instructor. I walked in there with a Monster Energy drink, and she accused me of coming in inebriated. I was sitting here like, really?
I have something to say.
Oh.
So the batterer's intervention, hold on, I'm getting another call. So the batterer's intervention and prevention program, there are several facilities out here in McLennan County that facilitate that program. The caseworker who was on our case sent my husband to her former employer.
Yeah, Kimberly went.
And that's a grievous conflict of interest, because she knew the instructor. She worked with the instructor at that same facility. She could have sent my husband to any facility here, but no, she sent him to her former employer.
Well, not only that, towards the end of the case, when I got my new therapist, she emailed my therapist and told him that he needs to diagnose me with narcissistic disorder.
Yeah, she tried to force a diagnosis from his therapist.
Yeah. And granted, he is state funded and has a contract with CPS. But just because he has a contract with you does not give you the authority over him to tell him what to diagnose a person with.
That's terrible. That's terrible.
And I've heard horror stories about what CPS does. I've heard they've gone in and tampered with drug tests
Mm-hmm.
to give a false positive.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, dude,
There's another thing that I've heard.
That is egregious overstepping of your boundaries.
And they do it all the time.
Yes, they do. And I've got another thing to add to that. We have a friend who's suffering from DFPS out of Cameron County, and a PI got a caseworker to admit that they use the same exact piece of paper with the same exact allegations for every single family that they get involved with in that county. All they do is change the names on that paper. And the allegations are running a meth lab, sexual abuse, physical abuse, that they use, we call it a default paper,
Mm-hmm.
where they're using the exact same thing for every single family they get involved with. And our friend is out of Cameron County.
Well, they did the same thing with us, with our family service plan. In there, it stated that if these actions were to continue, it would lead into the severe injuries or death of the children. And I confronted them on that, and they said, "Oh, that's just a bread and butter statement,
yes,
and it has to be in there." I said, "You don't know that."
Exactly. I mean, and also, none of the caseworkers ever came to our home. Our case was open for 5 months before the caseworker who was overseeing our case showed up at our home.
She only showed up to tell you about this?
Yeah, no, she didn't tell me. She didn't tell me for a month. We didn't find out about the sexual abuse allegations until November 1st of 2019, even though my mother reported them on October 1st of 2019. And she came to our house on a Friday. I believe the date was October 25th of 2019 that she came to our house. And she never told me about the allegations. And on top of that, before she would even talk, she had to wait for my husband to leave the house to go to work. So I was left alone with her. But she wouldn't talk in front of him. He had every right to hear it. He had every right to be there, but she wouldn't talk in front of him. You know,
Well,
her name was Kimberly Witt.
Well,
And she, oh, I have one thing I never told you, Marianne, is the judge who oversees the cases here in McLennan County out of the 74th District Court. She also swears in all the CASA. And 1 month after our rights were terminated, our former caseworker became a CASA advocate supervisor. That judge swore her in as a CASA advocate supervisor 1 month after our rights were terminated.
Yeah, I just think they should all be abolished.
yes.
I just,
Well, and here's the reason why I want people to actually come talk to me before giving out those knee-jerk reactions.
mhm.
They do not see what happens in an individual's case.
Mhm.
I mean, the best example I can give is if they were to see how the children were talking outside of my mother-in-law's view, or yeah, how I put it is coercive control. If they're in a different room from her, the children are talking good about me. But when they're in the same room as her,
Mhm.
they start saying what I have to assume, is coaching
Mhm.
them to say. And it's completely night and day. They'll say something nice and then they'll recant and say something bad.
Mhm.
And the authorities here should have keyed in on that and said, hey, wait a minute. We made a mistake by giving them to this lady.
Oh,
We need to give them to somebody who won't coerce them and give the children a chance to actually speak their words on their own time.
right, because these families are weaponizing CPS on family members they don't like. People need to
Exactly.
understand that.
Exactly. And there were several times people were visiting the kids. My best friend would visit the kids. My in-laws visited the kids. And my mother would talk really bad about their dad in front, like not directly in front of the kids, but within earshot.
Mhm.
And my mother was told several times, not in front of the kids, not in front of the kids. And yet she continued. She continued. And then one day when I was living in Las Vegas with my best friend, my mother wanted to talk to my best friend. And this was after she placed those allegations on him. And all she talked about to my best friend was how much she hated my husband. There was no concern about the allegations. There was no remarks about that, nothing. All she talked about was how much she hates my husband. And to give you an idea of what kind of woman this is, when she had her 60th birthday party, it was this restaurant called Viva de Brazil. And what they do is there's a salad bar there, but they walk around with all different types of meat on spits. And it's a rodizio.
Yeah,
Rodizio. Okay.
Mhm.
And you get to try all the different meats. Well, my mother was getting more and more drunk that night, and she decided to pick on me in front of the 10, 15 guests that we had. And she looked at me and said, I never wanted kids, but because your dad wanted kids, I had to have you, and you were a horrible child. And I said, you always said I was a good kid. And she said, you were horrible. And she laughed at me. And nobody said anything. Nobody, stood up for me or anything,
Ah.
and another time she came over to my house after I had foot surgery, and she was helping out around the house, and she was really being very demeaning to me. This was 8 years ago, so I don't 100% remember the things that she was saying, but I later talked to my sister and I told her, and you didn't say anything. You just let her treat me like that. And she said, I would never say anything against mom and dad.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, another time my husband got really sick and he was laying on the couch because he was throwing up all day. And I don't know if our car was in the shop or it wasn't working or something, but he was asleep on the couch. And my mom comes in the door and she says, I wouldn't have to do this if he wasn't such a lazy ass and sleeping on the couch all the time. He does nothing.
Oh,
And he stood up and said, you can leave my house. Don't let the door hit you where the dog should have bit you, kind of thing.
mhm.
But she just continues to just berate him, and she's doing everything she can to get him out of the picture so she can continue her control of me.
Oh, I'm so sorry. All over this. And this is family dynamics that people have to understand that play into everything that you're going through. And, now you're getting these weird death threats. And uh, this people have to just open their eyes and know that there's two sides of the story, and just don't believe everything you hear and only half of what you see.
Especially with the media these days. The media
Mhm.
doesn't give two craps about the truth. They just want to report on something for the ratings. That's how they get their money. So,
The one was Fox KWKT.
yeah, Fox 44 KWKT. And the other article that was written about him was written by the Waco Herald Tribune. Or is that Tribune Herald?
Tribune Herald.
Okay.
Okay, well, you know what? I'm going to have you back on again to check on you and see how you both are doing. If anyone wants to reach you, they can come through me, dismantlingfamilycourtcorruption.com. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
Yeah. If anyone who's listening lives here in the Waco or McLennan County area, and you want to know a little bit more about our situation or anything else about CPS and its corruption, I'll have Marianne put my phone number in the comments or the description, and feel free to contact me. I have nothing to hide. I will show you everything if you
Mhm.
need to see it, because these courts need to see it.
Mhm.
But us parents need to band together and let these courts and CPS know that we're fed up. We're
Mhm.
done with all this.
And our children are not paychecks.
But yeah, my door is 100% open.
I
I'm
appreciate
willing to talk to anybody.
exactly. Exactly. You've been through too much. Um,
Yeah.
hey, don't jump off. Slam the Gavel's a podcast to help the public understand what really goes on in these family courtrooms. I'm your host, Marianne Petrie, author of Dismantling Family Court Corruption, Why Taking the Kids Was Not Enough, and Cry Out for Justice, Poems of Truth. Please join us again here with Patriot Mom and Dad in the future and other exciting guests. Thank you for sharing this with us and keeping us updated.
Thank you for having us again, Marianne. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.